At this time, we're going to have a public safety panel in which we're going to bring some troopers and the chief of police forward, and we'll field some questions. If Captain Burk Barrick could please come forward. Captain Barrick is the D detachment commander here in Fairbanks, and he's in charge of all of our subregions minus the Lower Yukon and Upper Kuskokwim subregion. If Captain Barry Wilson could please come forward. Captain Wilson is the commander of C Detachment, which covers Western Alaska all the way from the south area all the way up to above Kotzebue and that area. And he also has the responsibility for the Lower Yukon and Upper Kuskokwim subregions. If Captain Merrill could come forward. Captain Merrill is the commander for the statewide VPSO program, so he pretty much has all of the villages, and he works with the VPSOs and works closely with all of the nonprofits that manage the VPSO programs. Colonel Cockrell, he is the director of the Alaska State Troopers, and he supervises the whole show. So, Colonel Cockrell. We also have Lieutenant Piscoya. Lieutenant Piscoya is in charge and supervises the patrol units, judicial services here in Fairbanks, and the rural unit. We also have Sergeant Mike Johnson, Sergeant Mike Roberts. Sergeant Roberts has been with the rural unit, I believe, since June, and he does a lot of the, takes care of a lot of the call volume for our region. And we also have the chief of police from the city of Fairbanks. With half of our tribal population now in Fairbanks, in our urban areas, we'd like to welcome the new chief of police to this panel as well. And Will Mayo is going to come up and help me with moderating this. There are a few things that I just want to mention before we start fielding questions. We cannot field questions or take any questions about specific criminal. Okay, I'm sorry, sir, but okay, can I finish, please? I'm sorry, sir, but I need to finish. Okay, we'll give you your turn in just one moment, but if you can just let me finish what I was about to say. We can't field questions about specific cases because of we don't want to jeopardize any of our open investigations, and these are highly confidential matters as well. So if you can please keep your questions general. If you do have concerns about a specific case, we have a number of troopers here in the back. They have their notebooks. We can only talk to victims about particular cases. So feel free to get with them on the side after our panel, and we can look into those cases for you. Will?
I'm going to pose these questions, and I will direct the question to this one to Colonel Cockrell. What can we expect with the proposed state budget cuts? Yeah. Come on up.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me, Jody and TCC. I feel it's a great honor to be here with you. I'm pretty humbled to be here. So I'm not a real good speaker in the public, so bear with me a little bit. Also I met with Commissioner Folger this morning, and he's off to Juneau, otherwise he certainly would be here too, so he wanted me to say hi and wish you guys well. So, and to get to your question, how's the budget which would take effect in July of this coming year affect the Alaska State Troopers? Well, as we know, with the falling of oil prices and the lower volume of the pipeline, we're certainly in I know they don't want to call it a fiscal crisis, but we definitely have some challenges ahead before us, and public safety is no different. as a department, we submitted a budget with a reduction of about $10 million. The $7 million would affect the Alaska State Troopers directly. So essentially, the Alaska State Troopers, if the budget passes, it's went through the House right now, so we're waiting for the Senate version to see what the fallout actually is. But essentially, as of right now, I'm going to lose 24 uniform positions and 6 special investigative positions, plus a reduction in our aircraft section and some other reductions within the department. So it's gonna affect how we do business in certain areas of the state. One thing that we tried to do in drafting the budget is to protect rural Alaska, and I think we've done a pretty good job this year. I think as long as we don't have a lot of movement out of our bush posts, our rural Alaska presence should stay about the same. The only difference we may see is in response times with some of our aircraft if we can't fly our aircraft the way that we normally have in the past. And it'll also, I think we're going to have a question on the VPSO, and I'll let Captain Merrill address that. But there is some reductions in the VPSO programs. I don't think it'll affect the total number of VPSOs. However, we are losing our 4 state trooper support positions for the VPSO program. So that, to me, means that we'll probably have less interactions with the actual VPSOs in the field, and a lot more responsibilities to our patrol troopers to ensure that we're interacting and also interfacing with the nonprofits to ensure that they're providing the services that you guys demand and want. Yeah, if Captain Merrill would like to come up and talk, there he is, talk about the VPSO program.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. I took over the VPSO program about a year ago when Captain Arler retired, and I've had the opportunity to work with TCC fairly closely and enjoyed that. So in general, what the reductions are going to look like is we're going to lose general funding that we provide to the grantees, which is our 10 nonprofit partners, of about $1.6 million. So that equates to about 10 total VPSO positions within the program that we're going to lose. Ultimately, at this point in time, we haven't filled all the positions the legislature gave us in the first place. And so ultimately, we aren't going to see a reduction in the numbers of VPSOs that we have actually working right now, but that will impact our ability to hire VPSOs in the future. A couple of other things that we'll lose is we'll lose 5 support troopers. We have 5 troopers that work directly for my office, and they work in different regions. We have one of those troopers that works here out of the Fairbanks office. His sole function is to provide support to TCC, to Jody, to Sergeant Potts, and to work with equipment and training and providing services to the VPSOs in mentorship, as well as training, report writing, and other activities. That position will go back to patrol, and so we lose that function in my capacity to use those troopers specifically for support of the VPSOs. So that task is going to fall back onto the detachments, to Sergeant Roberts and to Captain Barrick to provide that support and mentorship to the VPSOs. The other part of my budget that we're going to lose is we're going to lose some money out of our budget for the DARE program. And so the DARE program right now is slated in the budget to be removed completely from our budget. So we as the state will not operate the DARE program any longer, which will create some difficulties for the programs, the schools in the regions that do that. They can continue to have DARE programs, but to train new officers right now, they'll most likely have to leave the state to do that, which is going to be a fairly high cost, but that is something in the budget that will be removed. So that's what the impact this year with the budget that looks like will be to the VPSO program across the state.
Thank you for that response. And the next question I'll direct to Sergeant Roberts. Could you share with us some of the challenges you experienced while investigating calls for service? Sergeant Roberts.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Roberts. I'm a sergeant with the troopers, obviously, as you've heard said many times over so far. I think some of you might recognize me from being able to be in the villages with some of my troopers that are standing there in the back. And there are a couple things that are common misconceptions that I think in the community and stuff that I think that if I could communicate to you, maybe you would understand our position just a little bit better. One of the key problems that we run into, probably more than anything, in the interior villages, and in my experience working in Western Alaska too, for that matter, is that we have people will report something to us, and then we respond to investigate, and then we no longer have victims or witnesses that are willing to cooperate with us. So what this often equates to is there have been several incidents just in the interior villages where we've had community members who have heard that something happened with a particular family or an event or something, right? The community members call and report it to us. When we make contact with the family members who are the victims, the suspects, the witnesses of the event, all of them tell us nothing happened. We don't want to talk to you, go away. We have a lot of rules that we have to follow as law enforcement officers, and to build prosecutable cases in order to submit charges to the district attorney's office for prosecution, we need to have the cooperation of the victims and witnesses in order to make that happen. What often ends up happening is a misunderstanding with the community that we're not doing anything, or that we failed our job and that we're not good at our jobs, or that we don't care, right? And it always is the opposite. We are always trying. My guys in the back, every time a call for service comes in, it's meticulously documented in our computer system and then tracked with warning alarms that pop up on my computer screen to tell me each of my troopers pending incidents that they have to deal with. I know right now each of the troopers that are standing in the back of the room, the ones that are responsible for these 20+ villages, have around 20 incidents apiece that they're trying to investigate. Without people cooperating with us and helping us resolve these issues, we're not able to form prosecutable cases. That's one of our big issues. Another one of the big issues we have is that oftentimes victims are far too intoxicated to even tell us what occurred, what happened. This is kind of a sub-part of the first thing, but we need to do a much better job together, troopers and community members, on educating our young people not to go drinking at some house that's foreign to them or that they know has had trouble in the past, and that it leads to no good. Bad things happen when people get put in those positions. We need to try to do a better job of educating folks not to do that. We need to be more mindful and make good choices as far as the level of alcohol we consume so that we can remember and get ourselves out of the positions that we're in when we put ourselves in a precarious situation that we can't get out of, where crimes end up occurring. It makes it very, very difficult for us to investigate something when the victim can't even tell us what happened, and what we have are some ideas that something happened. We believe that something might have, but that's not good enough in a court of law for us to be able to prove that that occurred. That's a second issue that we have. Thirdly, we need to do a much better job of supporting and helping our victims and our witnesses. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how many times in my 12-year career that I have seen victims and witnesses ridiculed for calling and reporting a crime to troopers, and the suspects being treated better than the victims and witnesses because the victims and witnesses called us. How can we help these people that are victimized of crime if we treat them that way? We need to love and support them and help them so that they get that support and they can recover from the crime that they're a victim of, but additionally, that they feel like they can call the troopers and ask for our help in the future. And finally, as a sergeant, I'm the supervisor of the boots on the ground troopers. If you call me or call my troopers directly, you will be able to get a much quicker response. If you call another organization or other group that you belong to, that organization will probably end up calling my bosses on this table. My bosses will turn around and call me, and then they'll have me call you. That's often how that cycle occurs. If you will call me directly first, call my troopers first for a response from us, it'll speed up the process dramatically. And then, of course, I absolutely invite you, if you are frustrated with me or frustrated with my troopers, feel free to call my supervisor. I have had, this is the final thing that I want to add here, but just to put this in perspective. We had an incident in a village that I won't name where the woman was very, very upset. She sounded intoxicated over the phone. She was complaining that other people were intoxicated in her house and they wouldn't go away. She wanted us to arrest them all for bootlegging because they were bringing alcohol into a dry village, okay? When my trooper said, who brought in the alcohol, she told them. She said, is there alcohol still there? She said, yes. He said, can you hold on to that bottle of alcohol for me and keep it so I can use it as evidence to help make the case? She says, no, I'm going to drink this bottle of alcohol. It's a challenge, as you can see, right? We have some difficult things we have to overcome. Throw in the time, distance, weather, limited number of troopers. We are constantly trying to prioritize and stack which calls are worse, which calls are less severe, so we know which ones we need to respond to in what order. I promise you we will eventually get to it. I apologize if it's a greater delay than what you had expected or what you hoped for from us, but I promise you that we will give our absolute best effort to get to every call as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you for that good response. And call my supervisor. It sounds like an old Indian trick. I'd like to direct this question at Chief Aragon. Chief, we once again welcome you to Fairbanks. And the question for you is, what is your plan to improve relations and policing within the Fairbanks Native community? Chief Aragon.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here. Jody, you have a tremendously big job. I applaud her efforts. She came and visited me. We spent about an hour and a half, and I'm amazed at how much work she performs in her leadership. So thank you very much. When I arrived, or before I arrived in my position, the mayor put 3 big goals ahead of me. I added a few more, 4 more, but enhanced communications, transparency, and enhance diversity relations. I added a few more. One was mutual trust between the police department and those we serve. Another one was accountability of our officers. A third one was problem solving. And the last was developing a true, proactive, positive partnership between our police department and the community we serve, which includes all races, ethnic groups. And this has really been, we've hit the ground running, and I'll just give you a quick overview of the, to answer your question. When I arrived, I realized there was a concern. February 17th, I met with Frida Williams, the Executive Director of the Fairbanks Native Association Community Services. She gave me a complete tour of the facility. I was amazed. I collaborated with her about starting which I've done in other cities, meeting with the seniors. And she mentioned that they have an elder center, and I agreed to meet with the elders once a month. In fact, tomorrow is my second visit. I go there and have lunch. The first lunch was on February 25th. I met with the seniors, and it was, of course, it's the Alaskan Native lunch. I didn't know it was salmon, and I thought it was grits, but it was, it was fish eggs, and it was good. In fact, I had 2 helpings of it, and I told my wife, you're not going to believe, it looks like grits from Texas. Anyway, it was delicious. Tomorrow, I can't wait to go because they have their the Alaskan Native lunches on Wednesdays, and I'm going tomorrow to talk. And I bring out crime prevention tips, a little bit of good stuff. Anyway, February 18th, I met with Colleen Hasbrook, the director of McKinley Head Start. I took a tour of the facility, amazed. Frida showed up, made sure I was going to get there, I guess, and we talked again. Okay, on February 25th, I met with the Fairbanks Native Association Executive Director, Steve Guinness. Steve, are you here? Well, he's not. Anyway, he told us that he was considered a boss, a leader, a slave driver. Well, from his presentation, he's also a comedian, so I must say that. I met with his one of his assistants, Perry Zogiak. I hope I said it right. But Perry, I met with him. We traded some emails prior to that. He's the director of the FNA, Behavioral Health. March the 7th, I was invited by Benno Cleveland. Benno, are you here? Well, there he is. He recruited me to go to the Alaska Native Veterans Association Midnight Sun Intertribal Powwow. It was a festival, a Native Arts Festival at UAF. Well, I'm a military combat veteran, retired Army, and before I knew it, I was in the color guard, marching around the whole thing. Anyway, I brought my community policing officer with me, Rick Sweet, and we set up a recruiting table because that's what we're trying to do. We gave out goodies to the children, and we filmed it. And of course, he told me about a week before that, I really feel honored On July 7th, I'm going to be there for the Summer Midnight Sun Intertribal Powwow. It's going to be conducted behind the Carlson Center, and I got the coveted honor to release the ceremonial eagle, so I really can't wait for that. So I'm feeling good about that. Benno is a salesman, so he recruited me also. I'm going to join the Alaska Native Veterans Association. I really feel pleased. I'm going to be a member of that. And since my appointment, I've met extensively. Shirley Lee, where are you? Boy, she must be like her son. I see her so much. I mean, every meeting I go to, she's there. She's going to be on one of my committees, Community Policing Leadership Council. Exceptional lady. I don't know how you do all this, but thank you. I've been visiting the Housing First. Love it, and we're going to continue with that. I have been out there in the community. I mean, really, it's been incredible. This is just a beginning, ladies and gentlemen, just a beginning. My officers are really doing a lot of work with the community. We started a community policing effort. South Fairbanks now has a community watch, and 90 citizens showed up. About 20 of my staff and stakeholders, Shirley Lee, Rodney Gaskins, you name it, invited a whole bunch, and we got another one kicking off. So we are building partnerships with the community, and I must tell you, it's working out really good, and thank you for your support. Mayor, he's my support element there. I can't get anything done without the mayor, Mayor John Everhart. Thank you very much. With that, thank you.
Well, that's a real coincidence, because I was in the South, and I ordered something to eat, and I thought I got what I thought was whitefish eggs. Imagine my surprise. And then Shirley was telling me about you, and she said, I feel like his daughter, I see him so much. Just kidding. You're both just such youngsters. I have 2 more questions, and I'm going to give Colonel Cockrell the first chance, but at his option, he can refer it to another officer, another one of the troopers. What are the challenges you face as commanders? Captain Wilson will be thrilled to address this question.
You notice I look this way when the question was asked. Didn't do me any good. Good afternoon. My name is Barry Wilson. I'm the captain for C Detachment, which is the West Coast, as was discussed, Kodiak to Kotzebue and out the Aleutian chain. I have the honor of working with exceptional people, both in my communities and the troopers that service those communities and their outreach to those communities. So I'm pleased to hear the chief talk about his outreach in Fairbanks, and it's mirrored by our outreach in the rural communities of Western Alaska and in TCC's area, as I have Sergeant Zito over here on the my far right, who does Aniak and the upper Yukon, lower Yukon area. So that in itself, that explanation of where I service, and Captain Barrick has the same challenge, Captain Merrill has the same challenge, of course the Colonel, who takes care of all of the state when it comes to state law enforcement and the coordination with everybody, is logistics. Logistics is our challenge. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You've known this for millennia, of getting from place to place and how you do that, and the challenges Alaska provides to us in that getting to locations. But that becomes our challenge in law enforcement in our emergency responses to locations. So how do we get from point A to point B when it's a blizzard, when it's terrible weather, when we don't have the equipment, we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources available to us to do that, and somebody needs us to be there. You know, I was extremely moved and honored by Tanana's presentations today. That was very uplifting, because in our hearts, we know that people care about us when we're in the communities. And that was proven today by all of you, and I appreciate that. I want to make sure I say that. And that's what happens to us when we can't get somewhere, because that does happen, when we can't get to a location. Obviously, our response to Tanana, as an example, took time for us to be able to get there, and the weather was good. We've had other communities that have had tragedies that have occurred where we can't get there. It's nighttime and we have no one that can fly us there. We've had tragedies in our flight operations that have caused us to change the way we fly. So we don't fly at night as much. We have very limited craft that are able to fly at night, so we can't get to locations. We have a weather that makes it so that we can't make the locations, so then we have to, by phone, have the ability to speak to the communities and give them the ability to self-help until we can get there in those tragedies and those events. And that's very hard. It's very hard for the communities. It's very hard for us because we want to fix things. We want to help, but sometimes you just can't do that. So logistics becomes a huge challenge. That's probably not going to get any better here. We've already had the discussions about budget, and that's going to affect possibly our aircrafts. That's going to affect our helicopters. It's going to affect our personnel. We were able to take some of the reductions in areas that won't be felt immediately by people. That may change next year, depending on what happens with the budgets. So those are really, from a commander's perspective, it's how do I support him so he can support them, so they can support all of you. That's our challenge as commanders. And in my world, it's how do I get somewhere to do that? How do I make sure I have the personnel to do that? I hope that answers the question for you. Thank you.
So the last question I'll pose, again, Colonel, you have the option. This one is, what are the challenges? I think I just read that one. Okay, here's. I can answer that one. Yeah, you can. All right, try this one. Okay, what might be some of the factors in any given rural response?
Thank you. Some of the things that we're obviously going to consider, Captain Wilson mentioned them, is geography. You know, where are we going? How would we get there? Do we have our own aircraft? Do we have the ability to charter aircraft, get them from someplace else? If not, do we have, you know, which troopers would we send? Who's working? Where are the troopers located? You know, in the summertime, they might be able to get there by boat. In the wintertime, they might be able to get there by snow machine. You know, we've talked about budget, and with the exception of the colonel, everybody up here is a policy implementer. The colonel is someone who helps develop the policy. But basically, what we're all going to do is if you give me one trooper, I will put one trooper in charge of Interior Alaska, and that trooper will do what that trooper can do. If you give me 100 troopers, I'll find work for those 100 troopers, and the same with everybody else up here on the table. So, you know. I think we all know that the budget, what the budget situation is, and that there's hard times coming, but we're not going to hide behind that. We're going to find a way to do our mission, and so we will adjust accordingly. If we have to ask wildlife troopers to assist, and they do all the time, they fly us to different places, they take cases, we can get pretty creative. But those are some of the things that we take into consideration when we're developing our response plan. Just very recently, we purchased a helicopter for Interior Alaska, and Anchorage promptly stole it and used it in Anchorage for a while. But when they give it back, we got we had our pilot trained up, and so we had our helicopter and our pilot trained, and we cross-trained him to fly the Caravan. We got a second pilot for the Caravan, and we had started to fully staff the rural unit. So we're moving in that direction. And now the budget has changed, and we're probably going to end up parking that helicopter for the next year or so. So we will adapt. We will accommodate the situation, but resources is one of the things that we consider. answer your question?
Yeah, if somebody stole my helicopter and I was a trooper, man, I'd breast them. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I think we'll take a couple of questions from the floor. We're over schedule, and President Joseph, if that's all right. 2 questions. Please approach the microphone. PJ.
Good afternoon. I know it's getting late. My name is, I'm First Chief Hoosler. My name is Speedy Sam. But like Sergeant Roberts is saying, you know, I think the main thing for most of our villages, probably all of our villages, we got to get the trust. We got to get our trust back from our victims. You know, our women that can beat up, our kids that's been abused. You know, we got to get their trust. You know, they want to come forward because, you know, we've hardly been backing them up lately. But so now, you know, they don't want to turn anybody in. They don't want to do the report. Because, you know, we lost that trust. So we got to figure out how we can get our trust back from our people. So we can fight for them. And just recently, at my village, you guys probably read about it already. You guys know about it. But that is what we are trying to figure out still. We're getting there, but we still got a lot of work. But our kids, we got to fight for our kids and our elders and our people that can fight for themselves. And we got to get that trust. So it was hard to do it. You know, something happened in our village. And not just the 7 council members that have been working on it. We got the whole village. We got the whole village in a meeting, and we took care of it. And you know, that's showing that we're working on getting our kids and our people to trust us once again, so that we could fight for them and that we could protect them and we could do something right for them. But this will still take a lot of work. But I think the key thing is to get our people to trust us once again so we could fight for them. And now probably save you a lot of work. Because I know that it's retaliation. That's what they're afraid of. You know, if they say something, they get retaliated later on. But, you know, if we fight for them and we act on it, then look where they're at now. You know, the kids back at home, you know, they're trusting us once again. But we want to still do a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of trust back to get from them. But I want to thank you, troopers, for coming here. I'd like to thank you guys for protecting us and still fighting for us.
Yes, my name is P.J. Simon. I'm the 2nd Chief of Allakaket. My first chief is over there, Gordon Bergman Sr. And we knew late Trooper Ritz. We gave him a ride when he provided law in Allakaket with our VPSO, Edward David. We have a VPSO there, and it would back up with the trooper. So to us, that's really something. It provides law and order, whether it's 2 in the morning or search and rescue or anything like that. We had Trooper Tom Mealy, I believe he's in the audience back there. He was our trooper before late Trooper Ritz. And then now we have Camilla. We know our troopers because Trooper Mealy spent the night in Allakaket. We had a town meeting, and we got up and we said, welcome this trooper. Welcome him to Allakaket, because he's the one that provides law and order so our elders could sleep good at night and our kids could have the rest they need in the security, not only in leaders, but throughout our community, to try to provide with no funding, you know, just law and order. But Will, I'll tell a quick joke since you're up there. You're always about jokes. Me and my cousin Chris Simon, well, not jokes, I'm sorry. Me and my cousin Chris Simon, we met Commissioner Folger and Inanna. We went moose hunting. We came back empty-handed. We're pulling the boat out, and our lights came on. I said, oh no, what did we do? I don't know. We didn't shoot nothing. My cousin Chris Simon said, and Trooper Folger came up to the window, and he stopped us because all our trailer lights were working. And he just wanted, I never saw Indians with all their trailer lights working on their boat trailer. So that's how we met Commissioner Folger, and he said he was originally from Tanana.